What's up, good people? My name's AJ, and I got an awesome question on one of my earlier videos. Surprised I hadn't talked about this yet, but someone asked me to give my advice on what to do during exam day. So tips and tricks that can help your chances of passing the exam when you're actually in there doing the thing. So I am going to share my thoughts on it. I know a little counterintuitively to the title. I'm going to start with the day before the exam because I think that is almost equally as important and can be really helpful for you guys if you are putting together your plan for what to do the day before and during the exam. As always, these are the things that I did that I felt like helped me out a lot. They might turn out to be very helpful for you too, but feel free to adjust these or modify them to fit your schedule or fit your needs a little bit better. So my first tip begins with the day before the exam, which is not to study and to have fun and relax. Relaxing the day before the exam could turn out to be one of the most difficult tasks that you'll have throughout your entire study process, for some people at least. You need to trust in the fact that if you followed good study habits prior to the exam, you have all of the material in your head already, you've learned all the formulas, and you know as much as you are going to know before taking those exams. Studying for 8 more hours, if you've already studied for 400, isn't going to make that much of a difference. Much more beneficial to you than studying for another 2% or 1% of time is going to be relaxing, letting your mind rest after the last 3 months, 4 months, 6 months plus, and getting yourself really refreshed and renewed for the challenge that you have ahead. So the day before the exam, I would usually wake up early to try to have myself in a good sleeping routine. I would play some golf or go see a movie, watch some shows, clean around the house, doing dishes, doing laundry, that type of thing makes you feel good after completing those types of tasks. And those are all activities that I think are really beneficial for your state of mind the day before you go to try to complete something as mentally challenging as one of the CFA exams. That night, make sure you eat a good dinner. When I say good, I mean healthy foods, things that can stimulate your brain, and there's tons of articles out there on what types of foods to eat. I think I usually did some kind of fish. And go to bed early because you're going to want to get as much sleep as possible, and typically you have to wake up fairly early. If you are staying at a hotel right near your exam site, maybe you don't need to wake up all that early, but for me, I had about a 2-hour drive that my wife would make, and I'd sit in the passenger seat. So go to bed early because you're going to have to wake up early the next morning. You want to at least be sleeping 7 or 8 hours. When you wake up the day of the exam, if you're a nervous person, you want to try to stay as calm as possible. For me, I was extremely excited to finally get to put to use all the work I had done for the prior 6 months or 7 months depending on the exam study process I was using. So depends on who you are, but you want to kind of put yourself at ease or in a mental state that you're going to be able to recall and remember information effectively, because of course that's going to optimize your chances of doing well on the exam. Eat a good breakfast. I usually ate some fish and fruit or maybe some Greek yogurt. I don't remember exactly. Just make sure you're eating a good amount of food and drinking a lot of water that morning. And then I mentioned I had about a 2-hour drive over to my exam site. I would spend probably an hour to an hour and a half of that reviewing formulas. So I wasn't studying any types of problems, but just making sure. If you've watched my Secrets to Passing the CFA Exam video, you know what I've been doing for the past 3 days before this exam day process. So in the morning, I'd spend about an hour, maybe 90 minutes of that 2-hour drive making sure I knew all of those formulas hands down. And so that's actually a really beneficial process for me because it gives you a little refresher the day before the exam, the day of the exam. Then the other minutes in the car when I wasn't studying, I was just relaxing, meditating, getting myself in a good mental state to be able to go in and perform as well as possible. My next tip could be a bit of a personal opinion on it, but I wouldn't carry too much into the exam room. I felt much more confident and at ease if I was fairly minimal with the supplies that I brought in. Now, I know the CFA Institute is very strict on what types of items you can bring into the exam site, but it is still a long list. And if you were to bring 1 or 2 or 3 of each of the items that they allow you to bring in, you're going to have literally your hands and arms full of stuff walking into the exam room. So what I would do was 3 number 2 pencils, my calculator, and I think just the exam ticket was all I would bring. Now for level 3, I think it's really important to have a wristwatch with you. It has to be an analog wristwatch because you're so crunched for time in the morning session. So that was a really important tip for level 3 takers is bring a watch with you, unless you've been far and away ahead of the time limit in all your practice exams, but most likely you're not. But for levels 1 and 2, it was just pencils and calculator, and then the required documentation, passport and exam ticket, I believe, those 4 items. Yeah, I didn't bring study material. I wasn't studying before, right before the test or during lunch. I would really kind of put my mind at ease. I would do some stretching in the back of the room, some deep breathing, things like that, just to make sure my brain was getting stimulated to the point where I would be able to recall all the information I had been studying. I just mentioned shortly ago that I wouldn't study formulas, and a lot of people did do that. This could be another little difference in personal style, but I had been studying for so long, and in the prior 3 days memorizing all the formulas, I didn't see much value in taking the 60 minutes you have outside of the exam room for lunch to cram a few more formulas in my head. Now, if I hadn't prepared well and I felt like I needed to do that, maybe I would have, but in the situation I put myself, there was no need to continue studying, so what I did was relax. I would close my eyes, take deep breaths, I was doing more stretching. I think you'd call it calisthenics or something like that, but I felt like those type of activities kept me awake and lively and ready to answer more questions come the PM section. And then my last tip is to have fun with it and enjoy the exam day. Now, this might not be possible if you haven't prepared well, or that you're probably not going to be passing the exams, but for a lot of people who were really serious about getting these things done and put in a really serious amount of time and study schedule before the exams, if you go in with the confidence that you've prepared as well as you can, not necessarily confidence that you're going to pass, because I don't think I had that, but confidence that you've done 100% or as close to 100% as realistically possible, maybe 98% effort towards studying for this exam, then you should be in a pretty good mental state where you've done everything you can. And so now on exam day is just the time to perform. So I kind of compared it to like an athlete, think about college football or high school football or soccer, track, whatever, where you practice, and instead of having a game once a week where you're preparing for the game and then you have the game on the weekend, all week you prepare for the next game, have the game on the weekend, in this game you study for 6 months and you don't really get to, aside from some practice exams, you don't really get to apply what you've practiced for into where it counts, and only but in one example, which is test day for the CFA exam. So I was really super excited to be there. I still look back on some of those exam days and list them on my list of favorite days of my life, just because so much preparation goes into those exams. When you finally get to go put the information you've learned to work in the test, at least, not in the real world sense, but in passing the exams, I don't know, that experience was just super special for me. I loved it. And so whatever you can do to get yourself to the point where you're really enjoying yourself and having fun on exam day, that, in my opinion, can only be beneficial to you and your chances of passing the exam. Let me know in the comments what you all think. If you have any other tips for anyone else, feel free to leave that below too. But thanks for watching.